Greetings, greetings. What's going on, everybody?
Hello.
Hello. China. Okay. What's going on? What's going on? Welcome to Sunday Book Study. This is your host, Travis Majors.
China Church.
China. Today we're going to be talking about initiation into Hermetics, Step 1, and Mystical Kabbalah, chapters 8, 9, and 10. Because I like to have fun, and read a lot of books.
Good.
Oh, snap. Michael Bell's on Sunday service right now. Isaac McCoy.
Say what?
See, I see. What's good, Hanifa? Greetings, MC Maestro. Mike McGee, greetings, greetings. Cassandra,
Greetings.
welcome aboard. Veronica, super early bird.
Yes, today I'm early, as you know, because last week I missed the class. So today I was like, that's it. I'm shutting this thing early. So I've been watching your videos from yesterday, because I think that you did one yesterday for your Mystical Kabbalah, the chapter 10. So I went over that. I was not able to finish, but I went through the whole thing, almost the whole thing. So yeah, I'm pretty much updated.
Excellent. All right. I tried to make sure I set this up early so that I wouldn't be late. Now that I've done, I need to go back upstairs. This cold Ormus has been on point, let me tell you.
Mm. Oh boy.
All right. I'm heading upstairs to my notes.
Connected to SAMSUNG. Ended. Ended.
Peace, peace.
Battery 20%. Connected to SAMSUNG.
All right, Samsung, I'm going to mute you because you're just a robot voice talking. All right. So, initiation into Hermetics has us going into the first step of this development of spirit, soul, and physical body. And pretty much for the mental side, it has a lot to do with developing concentration for meditation. On the astral side, it has us developing the black and white mirror. And then on the physical side, it has us develop a regimen for physical exercise. Now, honestly, these exercises are not difficult at all. They just take a little bit of willpower to actually get started. So, yeah, in the Mystical Kabbalah, chapters 8, 9, and 10, she starts to really dig into the structure of the patterns of the tree and why it's important to understand the tree in relation to itself, as opposed to just one sephirah or one piece of it. It has to be understood in context of the whole thing. So, who wants to go first as far as what you've gotten out of these texts, your experience or your questions?
Okay, so pretty much when I was reading your chapter 4, step 1, I was looking at concentration part. Let me just get into that page. Hold on. When you were talking about the thought control, pretty much your book is a little bit different than the PDF. So the words change, so whatever it might be. I was just talking about like how you have to have that discipline of you doing it like from the beginning for like a minute, 2 minutes, or 3 minutes, and eventually you'll be able to develop more from 5 minutes to 10 minutes. And then you were talking about concentration or focus on one single thing, like one original thing. Pretty much when, actually, let me just go to the room, hold on. So what I basically I was saying that when you are actually, you do your mantras in a way, it does help you out to concentrate for one single thing in your mind and not necessarily thinking about what's happening during the day or what's happening during, you know, what's coming events of your lifetime.
Right.
Because, you know, we have a very busy life. So it's not easy for being a magician at these days. I mean, compared with the time that these guys make those books and the time that the old timer magicians, they did have all the time to spend to do these things. Now for the new generations, I think for us it's a little bit more, I don't know about you, but for me it's a little bit more harder because it's a very busy life schedule. But in
Right.
a way, you have to figure out how to concentrate to one single thought. So to me, it's like I do mantras. So specifically when I do mantras, I concentrate with the entities that I'm going to call. And I do like a whole mantra based on that single entity and concentrated for that one single entity. And of course, now when you get to understand the mystical Kabbalah, now you understand in a way that if you call one entity, you are no longer calling a one individual spirit, you are actually calling a one single energy. So now you're putting that in your mind, in your thoughts. So kind of like things change in the way of you believing on the terms of magic in a way that I don't know, I guess like I get to see other people up there, like they practice magic and they glorify all these entities. I actually see them like then practice a form of religion instead of like doing the actually magic. Not that I'm criticizing that, just saying that I can see the differences now between an advanced theory than somebody who's stuck in that environment of like, I'm glorifying this God or this goddess or this spirit or that spirit. It's kind of like similar when you do religion in a way, you glorifying Christ in a way, it's, you know, it's just similar to that, I guess. So the one single thought, it's that thing that I was analyzing in the book. So yeah, that's what I noticed on that.
Okay. Okay. So you're beginning to see more of the nature of how the spirits and the entities and things of that nature are symbols. They're symbolic of certain forces that are operating behind these symbols. I think that's what it sounds like you're saying to me.
Yes, it's just like a thought, a weight of thoughts. it's not longer like, like, how do I explain it? Like how not to be able to concentrate. Like it says in the book, you have to put one single thought, one single thing, one single concentration in one thing. So
Right.
that's pretty much what I'm trying to do. Because my mind is like all over the place because I have a very busy schedule during the day. So for me to like try to actually stay quiet in a form of meditation, it's not that simple. But at least that if I know that I need to practice and concentrate on one, then I would concentrate in one single entity that I might want to call, even though I know it's part of me or it's one single energy from the mystical Kabbalah. I'm like, I need to concentrate on that name of that particular entity or that particular energy. That's my one single at this point. Even if it's 1 minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, or maybe whatever that might be, which happens to me actually like 3 days ago when I was able to go through the chapter for the step 1 and I was putting one single entity. And of course, I was kind of like able to experience some kind of like a astral projection, is that's what we call it, like a form of like releasing in a way, disperse some kind of like energy out of me. It's kind of like an astral projection, I suppose that's what we call it. So I experienced that in a way by doing the practice from the book. And this is just the first time doing this from this book. So now eventually I'm going to keep going and going and going until I feel that I am getting better on that.
Right, right. So yeah, we noticed that the first step of the work of the spirit is, like you said, the concentration. And it's really breaking down the 3 aspects of concentration. The first is becoming the observer and just taking notice to the thoughts that are bouncing around in your head, right? And this really isn't doing anything special. This is learning how to focus, right? This is an easy, simply explained method of learning how to focus. So what you're actually doing, another way to say this is, when you're stepping out and you're observing these thoughts in your head, what you're actually doing is you're tuning into a higher aspect of your mind, right? Most of us are wrapped up in the lower aspect of the mind. And as I said before, it isn't actually thoughts or thinking. What we're doing is we're experiencing our emotions and we're remembering memories and being triggered by memories, but we're just responding and creating opinions on these emotions that we're feeling. So we're not thinking thoughts, we're just feeling feelings. When we start to become the observer and zoom out and pay attention to the thoughts that are bouncing around in our head, we're tuning to higher mind. We're getting closer to spirit, getting closer to higher self, because we're able to look down on that animal self and just observe all these thoughts that are bouncing around that are being caused by the 5 senses, by memories, and by the feelings that we're feeling, right? So that's the first step of any of this magic stuff, any of the spiritual work, right? It's kind of strange how people claim to be doing spiritual work, but they're still wrapped up in their animal nature and don't even realize it. But anyways, the whole first step of initiation into Hermetics is rising up to that higher mind so you can start doing work on these higher planes that we're talking about in mystical Kabbalah. So mystical Kabbalah is giving us the roadmap for the energy, but it's initiation into Hermetics that's teaching us the practice of how to work with these things. Because as Dion Fortune said in chapter 10, she's not going to tell us how to do these things, at least not explicitly. That's why we're reading Initiation into Hermetics, because we're going to use the techniques that Franz Barden is teaching us to work with the higher planes. So yeah, that very first step is crucial. It's showing us how to use our mind, access our mind. And of course, the magic mirrors is helping us organize the astral body so it can be used intentionally. The astral body is intimately connected with the emotions. And if the emotions aren't organized and balanced, then again, we're not using them, we're being used by them. Right? Most of our emotions today are being manipulated by the media because it's throwing things for us to react to. You're not leading if you're following. But with this step of organizing our emotions, we're categorizing the things about ourselves, right? We're looking at ourselves now. And we're looking at the things that we want to improve upon. We're looking at what we need to do to become the best aspect of ourselves. So we're writing a list of all the things that we want to change about ourselves. And then here's the work. Not only are we writing a list about the things that we want to improve about ourselves, but we're using what we've learned so far in initiation into hermetics to categorize each one of these qualities into the categories of the 4 elements, right? So if we got an anger issue, obviously that goes up under the fire element. If we're lazy, that goes up under the earth element. If we daydream, we space out. If we avoid work, if we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, get distracted, that goes up under the air element, right? If we're petty and emotional and we get worked up and love, you know what I'm saying, drama, that goes up under the water element. But this step here in initiation into hermetics is about classifying these aspects of ourselves. And I know that there's probably a lot of people who read it and didn't feel like you need to do it, but I really want to emphasize that this is one of the most important parts of the whole book. So please, if you have not done it, there's still time. As a matter of fact, this list is intended to go on forever because you always want to pay attention to yourself and be improving yourself. But you got to write down that list and categorize these qualities about yourself, because this is what we're working with to move on to step 2. So if you haven't taken the time to make that list, please make that list today. And then of course, I think the physical part of it is self-explanatory.
I think that you actually doing that list, you actually will probably you will figure it out where exactly in your Kabbalah map you belong to in a way, because these energies have their own unique characteristics on the Kabbalah as well. So I think
Yes.
at that point you will know where you are located on the level of your on your Kabbalah in a way.
Yeah, you know, and I wouldn't really jump too far ahead. They're related, but they're not exactly related. As far as being on the tree of life of Kabbalah, most people are still between, which isn't very far at all. Actually, most people are just in Malkuth. This little path of introspection that we're talking about is probably on this 30-second path here. But really, the whole step 1 of initiation into hermetics is to just prepare yourself to get started. We're not doing any intense work just yet. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and because it's mystical and spiritual and magical, we have the tendency to overthink it and overdo it and try to make it more special than it actually is. But Franz Barton is pretty straight to the point. Just make a list of the qualities about yourself that you feel that you should improve. That's all we're doing here. It doesn't have to be any deeper than that, not yet. So don't go too far ahead. What up, Django?
Peace, Trav. Hey, you know what I did with this list that kind of made it easier for me to discover that I'm a piece of crap and I gotta keep doing the work. I went back into the book and I'm kind of a rereader. I like to reread and then catch back up to where we're at. So I went back and I looked at, of course, the elements, and I took the temperaments that he put in there, the choleric, the sanguine, the melancholy, and the phlegmatic, and I kind of made like a list, and I put the fire with the choleric, and then I took all the words of the active / good and the negative / bad, and I lined them all up, and that's how I took each one of them and I equate it to myself. So when you look at the choleric, the active of good is activity, enthusiasm, eagerness, determination, bravery, so on and so forth. And then I took the negative or the bad and voracity, jealousy, passion, irritability, quarrelsome, blah, blah, blah. and I just put them all in that line. And then well, actually what I did, I contemplated that. After I looked at all of them, I wrote them all down, I stopped and I sat back and I just thought about that or meditated on it. And then I meditated on myself, and I was actually able to pull each one of those words to myself. So it was just like throwing a dart. Like I'm the dartboard, and each one of the darts that are thrown is pinpointing right where I'm at. Irritable, blah blah blah, over this, and shallowness and carelessness, and that's how I actually made it kind of easy for myself. Because when it comes to it's like an interview, when you go in and they say, well, tell me something about yourself, and you start mentioning all this cheesy stuff that's really not about yourself. You're just using, a bunch of words instead of really getting down to the core. So I kind of found that easier, once I realized that, basically they all have dual polarities of expression, so I had to go back through the book and just rediscover what I've already read, and it just put it all together.
Awesome.
So right now I'm just
That's a great way to do it. It's a great shortcut because, like you said, he already lists the qualities and their negative and positive aspects. So instead of making it more difficult, we could just go back to that portion of the book, like you said, and work from there. I didn't even think of doing it that way. That's pretty awesome. Flipping back through here. Yeah, so those of you who have the physical copy of Initiation into Hermetics, on page 44 and 45 is what we are talking about here, where you know that the choleric temperament relates to fire, and the book straight out tells you the positive and negative attributes of the choleric temperament: activity, enthusiasm, eagerness. We talked about this already, but yeah, using this list is a great way for you to go ahead and make your own list. Of course, don't limit yourself just to what's here, but use this as a blueprint to help you figure out what needs to be done. Thank you for pointing this out. I did not even know that. If you got the PDF, this is in the portion that talks about the soul or astral body. So yeah, again, he lays it out for you exactly what to do right here, right here. That's awesome. I wish that I had saw that when I did mine, because that would have made it a lot easier.
I kind of think that's the genius of him as a magician.
Mm-hmm.
How he'll mention something, like he mentions the chakras, and then he says, but I won't spend a lot of time speaking about this right now. And then he goes into the chakras a little bit, and then he says, the initiate, if you're an initiate, you will take the time to study this stuff yourself. So actually what he's doing, like they have a saying, they say it's the jargon. He's speaking in the jargon of the alchemist. He's not giving it to you directly, but he really is giving it to you directly, but he's kind of throwing you off a little bit. So this information is only built for the person who thinks empirically, who thinks abstractly. So when you're thinking on that way, you be like, okay, I get it. You trying to mess with me, and I caught you. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what it is, and because he kind of got me going around in a circle with him mentioning the whole great mystery of the Tetragrammaton. And I'm like, well, what does he mean, this great mystery of the Tetragrammaton? So I said, okay, well, I know that the Tetragrammaton, deals with the 4 elements. So now I have to correlate that to myself. And then that goes back into this whole black and white mirror thing. So now I can begin to look at myself to break myself down to discover the godliness of myself and quote unquote the ungodliness of myself. So the great mystery is basically self-discovery or self-realization, you know?
Yes.
So, but he lays it out. He's actually a good author. This is actually a good book. I'm glad that you put this whole thing together for this here, because this is actually this is really good right here.
Yes. Yes.
And mixing it with the mystical Kabbalah, that's perfect because you're getting the right side of the brain, you're getting the left side of the brain. So that's awesome, you know.
Exactly. We're getting the study and the practice. Because just like you said, he says, I'm going to mention this, but not go further into it. Let's get back to the work. And then meanwhile, she says the similar type of thing about this. She says, I'm going to teach you about the Kabbalah, but I'm not going to teach you how to use it. But she's teaching you how to use it if you pay attention. But if you put these two together, you got it. You got it. Because like what she was saying here in chapter 9 about how if you understand 4, right, you can categorize everything. So basically what I'm getting is if you're able to understand 4 from this and you're able to understand the 7 hermetic principles, you can figure anything out in the universe. There's no more thinking involved. There's no more, let me try to break it down and do this. No. If you can deduce what's going on through using the 7 hermetic principles, you know, correspondence, gender, vibration, polarity, if you can use that and understand what she's talking about here with the 4s, and with the 4s, obviously we're talking about the 4 elements, fire, water, earth, and air. But just to go a little bit deeper, she was talking about how you can attribute that to the 4 elements. You can attribute that to the tarot, right? Which is the wands, the sword, the pentacles, the cups. You can also correlate those with the 4 triplicities of the zodiac. So all the 3 fire signs, air signs, water signs, and earth signs. Pretty much, you can figure out any symbol or any spirit or any energetic reference of force if you can pinpoint which of the 4 elements they belong to. And that's how you can pinpoint what degree of energy that we're working with. If we're working with something that deals with fire, we know we can attribute that to the yod of the tetragrammaton, which means it's going to be an initiatory force, and it's probably going to correspond with Kether up here or something of that nature. If we know that it's related to an earth element, we know it's going to have something to do with the bottom of the tree, or the way that the energy moves down at the bottom. We learn from Hermetics that when it comes to the earth element, it's all the other elements collected upon it, and it becomes a new thing, tetrapolar magnet. But that still applies here to Malkuth, right? That also applies to Tauruses, Virgos, and Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. Sorry, love you guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're able to figure out which one of the elements it belongs to, which one of the planes that it's operating on, you can figure out what type of energy is behind it.
That so fits in with the clip off as well. Most people go to the clip off first before actually getting to know a little about themselves. So basically, when you take the tree of life and you extend it from you take Malkuth and then you add the bottom of the clip off, you fold it together so that one is the obverse and one is the reverse side. So now once you know whatever quote unquote demonic force that you're working with, you know whether it's a force that's going to be a watery or air or a fiery essence. So now you know what to generate in yourself, because once you really get the gist of this, you realize that you are both the trees. You are the tree of life, and you are also the clip off. You are also the angel. You're also the demon. You're also God. You're also Lucifer, the devil, whatever all the other terms. So
Right.
so this is so it's really a polar. everything is a polarity, you know?
Right. Right. So check that out. You're mentioning the clip off, which we hadn't really touched on here yet. But again, when we talk about the fours, we know we're talking about the four elements. But if we know that we're talking about the four elements and we're talking about Hermetics or Kabbalah, we know there's a fifth element, right? So Dion is teaching us that there's four trees, but there's also a fifth tree, and that would be the clip off, like you're talking about. And we know that the fifth element is Akasha, and from Akasha comes the other elements. Well, isn't that the story about the cliff off? How the cliff off is kind of like the root of the tree. Even though we know that the tree actually emanates out of the triple blackness of space, it's almost as if that outpouring, the emanation, kind of takes root in the cliff off, and it's almost like an up-down meeting kind of growth that happens there.
Exactly right. See, there's no shadow unless there's a sun.
Right, right.
And they both, you know, what or no light. There is no dark without light. There is no light without dark. Each one defines the other. Or the only time it becomes undefined when it wanders back to the Ein or the Ein Sof, which we can speculate to our human intelligence of what that is. We can make it sound good, but we can't really give a definitive explanation of the beginning of light, you know. So that's the whole thing. The clip off is basically the shadow of what's of the light coming forth from the tree of life.
Yes. Can't have the shadow without the light.
Yeah.
Right. Now, also talking about these four, Dion Fortune is teaching us so far in these chapters that there are four worlds of the tree of life. Now, I know that used to, so to it, you know, there's more of an understanding now, because with these four worlds, what she was saying basically was that understanding the pattern of the 10, you're understanding how the structure of this energy works. But about the four worlds, we're talking about what degree of energy is expressing itself. So you still got this pattern of 10, but it can operate on four different. On the highest level, we've got the world of Absolute. And this is the world that the essence of God directly works upon manifestation. So in the Absolute tree, that's the tree that is directly emanated out of the Ein Sof and Ein Sofar and the triple blackness, right? That's the first reflection, right? They call that the archetypal world, right? Because everything is based off of that one. And that one is represented by the fire element. And if you really want to get an understanding of the relationship of the Sephiroth and the world of Absolute, you'd actually, what you could do for symbolic reference is you can take your tarot cards and separate all the fire cards and line them up, right? You got the Ace of Wands here, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, the 7, the 8, the 9, the 10, the 9 and the 10. And looking at the relationships between those 10 cards, you can kind of see what type of energy is working in the Absolute tree. Now, what she also said was that when dealing with the paths of the tree, we understand that the path is actually the synthesis of the two Sephiroth that it connects. So if we wanted to understand this path here, the High Priestess card, we'd have to, in the Absolute tree, we'd have to understand what the Ace of Wands means and the the 6 of Wands means. We have to find what energy is symbolized between those two, and we'd have to apply it to the High Priestess. That's how we start to see what kind of energy we're working with in the Absolute tree. And we do the same thing for the Bria tree, except we'd line up all the water cards, the Ace of Pentacles, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, 7, 8, the 9, the 10 of Pentacles. We'd line those up, and we take another look at that High Priestess card, except this time we're looking at the relationship between the 6 of Cups and the Ace of Cups. It's a slightly different relationship, but that's the type of energy we're working with in the Bria tree. And that continues to the Yetziratic tree and the Asiatic tree. I thought that was a great way to really break down the relationships that we're working with here.
Yeah, she calls it a file cabinet for a reason. File
Yeah.
system.
The filing system, yes. I think it's a perfect way to approach this, because without this system, it's damn near impossible to retain and understand all this information. It's just random information, data with no organization. But see, this is the power of symbols, you know. And this goes back to what you were saying. The mind can no more understand this data than, you know, the eye can understand music.
What is that?
The mind isn't built for that. But we have these symbols and these sigils to kind of keep us on track.
Aren't you making that pasta?
You are not talking. Please mute your microphone.
No, I'll eat later.
Figure out who it is. No, I did. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. To me, this is profound. I don't know how everybody else feels about this, but
No, it
Yeah.
definitely is. You know, what I admire a lot about what she does is using, like when she talks about in what is this one? I highlighted here, chapter 10, verses 4, about that you have so many people who call themselves astrologers, people who just say that, hey, I'm you know, just deal with Kabbalah, and then you got people just, oh, tarot, tarot, tarot. But what she says is, the tree of life, astrology, and the tarot are not three mystical systems, but three aspects of one and the same system, and each is unintelligible without the others. This is why you see her kind of like not necessarily throwing shade, but she makes it clear that, you know, people who are doing like certain divinations and stuff like that, it's going to be very difficult, even though we have our intuition, it's going to be difficult to really bring out the best, I would say, that you can bring out if you don't incorporate um, those other aspects in its totality. Just like how she talks about looking at the tree of life itself as a glyph, you know,
yes,
and looking at it from a whole, um, before you start to study the individual parts. But it's really more about the relationship of all of them. I will relate that to trading, because trading is the same way. Once you understand how to read a chart, time frame correlation, um, buyers and sellers, candlesticks, you're learning all these small aspects. But then as you become abreast of all these different things, you learn how to use them in relation to each other to figure out a problem each day. And that's exactly what she's dealing with here. And that's kind of like the overall point that I'm getting from a lot of the stuff, is that it's good to understand these things and then use them as like a Swiss Army knife, you know, because not every situation is going to be exactly the same, and not everything is just going to be cut and dry. You have to figure it out, but here are the foundations of it.
yes, yes. And that's another major thing right there in verse 4. The tree of life, astrology, and the tarot. The tree of life, number 1, astrology, number 2, and tarot, number 3, are not three mystical systems, but three aspects of one and the same system, and each is unintelligible without the others. So I don't know, how can you call yourself a well-developed, you know, tarot reader or astrologist or Kabbalist if you don't understand all three of these aspects equally?
Mm-hmm.
It's like three parts of one machine, you know? But yeah.
So I would like to say this too. So as this is why it's also important for having, because you got people who just say they just, all you need is just yourself, to go within. But we know that we know that if you've come up in a particular place where you have been conditioned a particular way, and although we have our intuition, we still also have to be honest with ourselves and take into account the conditioning that has been placed in um, placed in our minds for long periods of time. And we talk about mental frameworks a lot. This is why it's important to study, because it can help you dissolve the different things that we think we know, or the worldviews that we think we know,
Mhm.
so that and replace those things. um, because when you look at these books are just nothing more than just conversations. And if you can detect and decipher, you know when somebody's kind of off and when they're speaking to you, you can do the same in these books. you know After reading them for so long, you can start to
Yeah.
find out lying similarities of things that tend to have a stronger foundation. And that's what she's basically just saying in general with this, is that you know you can't just half-ass do this stuff. You have to be able to look at these things in its totality to give you a better perspective. But the part of brainwashing or washing out your cup is very important. And so you can't just rely on your intuition just yet. You have to be able to take into account that you need to reprogram yourself. And this is why when you deal with initiation to hermetics, those those mirrors, and taking those different um um the name slips my mind, I'm sorry. um those different aspects of yourself, positive and negative, those things definitely come into handy, because you get to see just how far and deep the programming goes. And so that's why this works hand in hand. But I had a question for you, John. So something that just kind of confused me just a little bit, um, about the tetragrammaton. And I've actually kind of felt this way since I've was reading this. Um, if how is it that we're able to how is it that we're able to work with the tetragrammaton if we don't if the what does it say, the true mystical pronunciation of the tetragrammaton is said to be one of the arcana of the mysteries? How we
So,
Go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead, bro, go ahead.
I don't know if you're finished. I don't want to cut you off before you finish.
Mhm.
So, on one hand, that seems to be one of the blinds, right?
Mhm.
Because when you first even hear of the tetragrammaton, you go look that up. What's that mean? Tetra, four, gramma, image, ton, name, or something like that. Anyway, the four-letter name. And then the next thing you hear is that it's unpronounceable, that nobody knows the true pronunciation. So right away, that gives this feeling of, you missed out on something, or you don't have access to something. Now, the thing about the traps in these occult grimoires is that for basic minds, or for people who are half-assing it, as you say, or for just people who are beginning, these traps and these blinds serve to throw you off until you're ready. So the concept of the tetragrammaton in its first hearing throws a lot of people off, because they automatically say, oh, well, I can't even use it. But it's more of a formula. It's more of a concept. And that's what I really learned from Ophiel. There's not so much an actual word. Now there is a vibration that you can output from your throat that can carry along these five elements in such a way, but that's not the only way to use the tetragrammaton. That's the verbal way to use it. The other way to use it is the conceptual way. And that's what we're learning about in Hermetics and in Kabbalah. The tetragrammaton is self. It is the combination of the four elements, it's the combination of the four worlds.
Mhm.
It's the master key of using the four worlds on purpose. Now, like I said, one way to use that is through the word, but also becoming the word, just like in the Bible where, the word became flesh. right? In the
Mhm.
beginning, there was the Word, but the Word also became flesh, meaning that it
Mhm.
was active. It was an active participant in the physical realm.
Mhm.
So while the Word may be elusive, the Word made flesh is very accessible, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Mhm.
Which I know does because you've got study and history and Bible and whatnot. But yeah, long story short, what I really picked up from Ophiel is that the tetragrammaton, the demiurge, is a
Mhm.
process as
Mhm.
a word that you speak. It's a
Mhm.
form.
Mhm.
We're learning all about it. You know, Franz Barton calls it the tetrapolar magnet. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
The four
Yeah.
worlds is like zooming into it really closely with a magnifying glass. Because you could just say Yod Hey Vav Hey, right? Fire, air, water, earth. But if you zoom in, you got the four worlds, the 10 spheres, and each one of those little things.
Mhm. Yeah. I also hear a lot of math, um, mathematics also being thrown into it as well as another aspect of how to use it. So yeah, definitely.
Supreme mathematics.
Yeah.
Welcome aboard, Therese. Good to see you. I hope you pick up some things here, some clarification, most definitely. But yeah. And speaking of Ophiel, one of the things that she said in chapter 8, verse 10, just to make sure that's where we're at. Yeah, 8 verse 10. She talks about how we must remember, however, that each Sephiroth is negative, that is to say, feminine, in relation to its predecessor when it emanates and once it receives the divine influence. And it's positive or masculine or stimulating in respect to its successor, to whom it transmits the divine influence. Therefore, each Sephiroth is bisexual, like a magnet of which one pole must, out of necessity, be negative or positive on the other. We may perhaps explain further by an analogy of astrology. But yeah, basically what she's saying is that I remember Oldfield in his books was talking about how the plane above is opposite in polarity to the plane below. Remember when he was talking about that?
Mhm. Mhm.
About how manifestation, where if you want to go to the higher plane and visualize an outcome from the creative visualization book, you wanted to go ahead and visualize it from the end and work your way backwards. And that was
Mhm.
his way of reversing the polarity. Well, here, what she's talking about here is even though the spheres on this side are negative and feminine, when dealing with the sphere above it, it's if you're dealing with the sphere above it, then it's feminine because it's receiving the energy. But when you're dealing with the sphere below it, it's positive because it's giving the energy. So
Mhm.
even though we equate one as negative and one as positive, again, it's depending on the context. It's depending on how you're looking at it.
Mhm.
And somebody, Siren Key, I don't think she's here, but she was talking about how in one of the books that she was reading or studying, her teacher was telling her that they look at the tree upside down. Now I've never heard of nothing like that, so I couldn't really comment on it. But I began looking into it just a few hours ago, and I began to see how exactly it made sense. Crap, and now I forgot. It'll come to me in a minute. Where was it? But yeah, that is to say, to not get so stuck or hung up on one description of any of these Sephiroth.
Right.
It truly depends on context.
I was gonna say something about the distinguishing that she made a distinguishing uh hold on, let me So you have those people who are so chapter 8 verses 15 I thought was interesting. I thought it was a very important verse because I guess what the way I saw it was her making a distinguishing between those who I guess are focusing on the more magical side of the magic of the tree versus those who are more into the illumination
Mhm.
aspect. Um, and that verse is the way of initiation follows the coils of the serpent of wisdom upon the tree, but the way of illumination follows the path of the arrow which is shot from the bow of promise, uh, uh, Kesheth, uh the rainbow of astral colors that spreads like a halo behind Yesod. Um, this is the way of the mystic as distinguished from that of the occultist. It is swift and direct and free from the danger of the temptation of unbalanced force that is met with in either pillar, but it
Mhm.
confers no magical power save those of sacrifice in Tepereth and psychism in Yesod. And my thing was I was thinking, could this be why um, magic in the realm of using it just as a magical way to kind of maneuver through life tends to be less of a thing amongst those who are looking to just deal with more of higher levels of consciousness and awareness? Or is it kind of like, do those people who are just focusing on going through the levels of consciousness recognize that any situation, as long as they're focusing on vibrating higher or going up um, the middle path, all those things just kind of fall into place, so to speak, if that makes sense? That's kind of what I got out of it, but that's a thought that came to mind. You see a lot of people tend to focus more on doing the mental, spiritual illumination work instead of getting caught up in um, using it as a way to um, manipulate others or something. But I might be kind of off in my understanding of what she means by using it for magical purposes, magical powers. But that was just a thought that I thought was interesting.
Okay. What I got from that is, and I think it was interesting how she mentioned that the bow of promise, Kesheth, which is the rainbow of astral colors that spreads like a halo behind your sod, and you can clearly see that on the cover of the book, right? The halo behind your sod. But what I got from this is that she's talking about people who take the middle pillar versus the left and the right.
Mhm.
But kind of like what you were saying, the people who oh, we don't need to read any books. We just kind of feel it. We just kind of wing our way through it because it's in us. We don't need to study. It's already in us. I think she's talking about those kind of people when it comes to the mystic. Um, how the path is swift and direct and free from danger of temptation of imbalanced force that is met within either pillar. Now, see, the occultist, because that would leave it so that the occultist is the one who perceives the temptation of unbalanced force from either pillar. And she's talking about left hand path, right hand path, right? Imbalanced force. So all these people out here screaming left hand path, right hand path, whatever, whatever, are dealing with imbalanced force. And we see Star Wars with the Sith and the Jedi. Both of them are imbalanced. The only balance was the gray path, which, as far as we know, the only Jedi was Samuel L. Jackson. But it confers no magical powers, right? Because the magical powers come from the focused concentration of the left-hand path or the right-hand path. But it confers no magical powers except the magical power of sacrifice, which is basically compassion, and the magical power of psychism, which naturally comes from Yesod. But to me, from this, I think she was talking about the way of illumination is people who focus on the middle pillar and more of being intuitive as opposed to focused study.
Mm.
That was pretty cryptically written, though. I'll give it that for sure.
Hmm. Also, she low key, man. She drops a lot of biblical sayings in here.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you've read the Bible, you'll see, yeah, she definitely drops a lot of um um man, I thought I had that too. Um a lot of sayings that a lot of us Christians use. She'll drop a lot of those hints in there. Um like uh, and, thought I just looked at it. Let me find it and I'll come back to it.
Okay. Hmm. So y'all, so chapter 9, verse 4, she talks about how with these four worlds and the designation of four, we have a complete system of notation for expressing the mode of function of any given power at any given level, right? And so
Mhm.
because we've got all these symbols lined up, just like I said, the tree of Atziluth is the 10 wands of the tarot. The tree of Bria is the 10 cups of the tarot. The tree of Yetzeroth is the 10 swords, and the tree of Asaya is the 10 pentacles. Since we've got that all laid out, and then of course the 22 paths are going to be the 22 trumps. That's a very specific layout we have there. It's not random. It's not, hey, let me replace this God with my God name because I'm not a Christian and I don't want to say Jesus. It's a very specific system set up. It's not about what we like or don't like. And she goes on to say, it is for this reason that it is said of the barbarous names of evocation, like in the rituals when you say Adonai, Elohim, Eheye, and all that good stuff. They call those the barbarous names of evocation. That not so much as a letter may be changed, for these names are formula based on the Hebrew alphabet, which is the sacred language of the West, as Sanskrit is the sacred language of the East. In other words, when we're looking into these grimoires and these rituals that have these holy names, it's not just put there because these people just got out of church. The Hebrew alphabet and the Hebrew language was very precise in its meaning. It was extremely symbolic. The language itself was symbolic. So every letter had a numerical connotation.
Yes.
We have these rituals, even though it's to summon these demons or Goetia or whatever, it's not what you think the demons are, right? It's not these spicy creatures from hell. They are, and I'm not talking about you, you know that. It's
Yeah.
about symbols that represent forces of the universe, of these trees. So when we're working with the goetic spirits and we have to say, hey, yeah, you know, I am that I am, Adonai, God is powerful, or whatever,
Mhm.
it has nothing to do with heaven versus hell. It had everything to do with the numerical significance, the energetic significance of the type of energy we're contacting with. So like you'll see these other websites and books of people saying, oh, if you don't like to use the Christian names, then we replace it with Leviathan and, you know, Satan, da 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 da. That's powerless. That's ego stuff. That has no basis in functionality other than ego, right?
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I won't lie, man. When I first when I when I bought like something like when I first actually did up my first thing that I did was working with Nitika. Um and reading it, you know, I'm glad that we're reading this because there there is meaning behind this. And just like we were saying earlier, like she says, right there. It's metaphysical mathematics, you know, um, and because there's math behind it, we know math doesn't lie, you know,
Right.
and 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 when you think of formula, you also think of mathematical formulas, you know, for a reason. So really, what it does is it brings, I know at least for me, it brings when you put it in that perspective, um, it brings that level of um, assuredness because you know what you're saying, what you're vibrating when you say these
Mhm.
words aren't just some random. Because I remember, I forgot what it was, John. Ah, man, some of these names escape me because they're so long ago that I've listened to them. But they've done some. It was some machine, or these people they would say like ah, or they would say ah, and the actual letter came up when they spoke into this device. I forgot what that device was called, but when you actually say these names, they have a resonance to them. And you know how when you get into what is it? Is it cymatics?
Yes. Yes.
Cymatics.
Yes.
And when we deal with those, and we know that also too, when you're dealing with those different frequencies, they all have a corresponding symbol or shape to them.
Mhm.
And so, so that makes sense because you know that there is a hidden reality or a hidden energy behind the words that you speak. You know,
Yes.
I know for me it was definitely a aha moment and an encouraging moment because you ask yourself why. That's the whole point. Um, 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 Phil Cooper, that's one of the things he says in the Magician, you know, asking the question why. You know,
Mhm.
you want to find out why something is working and why it works. So I find that very comforting and very supportive too. You know, because the Bible always tells us, you know, you want to build your foundation on solid ground, and if you don't
Yeah.
know what these things do, then and why they exist and the purpose behind them, um, then it makes for a weak foundation, you know,
Yeah.
and makes me even reappreciate the Bible too a lot,
Right.
even
Same.
from, yeah.
Yeah. The more you know what I'm saying? Like there's no reason to be running around here blind and silly when the information is there, you know? Study to show thyself approved. That's got to be my favorite Bible verse. Study to show thyself approved.
Hmm.
But even the Goetia, right? Looking further into this, I'm starting to see more and more how and why those entities work. And I mean more than just because we're tapping into the energetic frequencies of ourselves. That sounds cool, but what does it mean, right? When I look at this here, I see a map of energy, just like the acupuncture, right? And qigong and all that, those Eastern sciences that show the different flows and patterns of the energy around the astral body. That's what we're looking at here, right? Just like I said that there's four trees stacked on top of each other. They're not physically stacked on top of each other. It's almost like a resonance it's layered, just like I've got my physical body here, but it's stacked on top of my skeletal system, right? Just like my emotional body, my astral body, my etheric body, it's kind of stacked on top of this one. My mental body stacked on top of that one. So even though this is a diagram of the universe, macrocosm, it's also a diagram of the physical body. It's also a diagram of the soul, of the mind, right? How we've got the animal nature here. We got left brain, right brain here. We got the higher mind here, right? But when you look at this, it also shows the channels of energy that flow around your astral body. This is the shape of your astral body right here. But it just so happens that we can designate each one of these paths to one of the tarot cards. Now, it just so happens that we can also designate it to the 7 planets and also to the zodiac and also the 4 elements. Now, what else can we attribute with those combinations? The goetic spirits. So we can attribute all the goetic spirits and the angels, the Shemham Mepharash, with all these paths and spheres. That's why the Goetia works. And that's what it means when I say that they're part of you. These entities are a part of you, right? They're part of your subconscious mind or whatever you want to say. That's because they relate to each one of these energies.
Mm.
And when we tap into them, we're only tapping into the sigil or the verbal frequency that's correlating with the specific path or sphere that those entities are associated with. All the Goetic kings deal with Tiferet, but there's 9 different Goetic kings, right? That's because they mixed with different elements and different zodiac signs. Goodness gracious.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah, nobody's really broken that down like that, honestly.
Nope. That's because ain't nobody reading these damn books. They read a little bit and they think they
Yeah.
got it. And they make a YouTube channel and now they're experts. They make a bunch of money, now they're experts. It blows my mind that nobody's talking about this shit. Either it's kept secret or these folks don't know. It's hard to say.
Mhm.
I think they don't know.
Mm.
You know, what's amazing about what you both are saying is, and it correlates with the elements, excuse me, when you deal with the tree, you deal with fire, and that deals with the root, and you deal with the air, that deals with the trunk. So when he was mentioning the Bible, so I went and looked. I have this Bible called Pocket Sword. And it has everything broken down into Hebrew. So when we look at the air, and then I look at Liv, she mentioned something about air. So it made me start thinking. So, you know, air is basically what comes out of our mouth when we speak the word. So the vibratory essence of what we're saying comes from that akasha. It comes from the etheric plane, which is basically existent within our mind, not the brain, that the cognitive thinking that we've acquired by living here, but by you dealing with that divine substance of supreme intuition. So when I looked at the word debar, which is basically means word, it says it's a primitive root. The primitive root means to arrange. So when we arrange these things, we can't arrange anything unless we have a foothold, as you said, a strong foundation. So basically the foundation of anything is the roots. Even though we start at the crown is the root, but when we go down to, a Kether is the root, and when we get to Malkut, that's the foundation. So the whole tree, if you really want to look at it as this geometrical symbol, it's also spinning. It's an orbit, because the top is the bottom and the bottom is the top, because it both mirrors each other. So in order to make everything come into fruition or come together on this vibratory pattern through fire and air, we have to bring those matters together, and that creates, as we know, that will create a combustion, and through that combustion, that's why when now you go back to the Bible and it says in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and all of that type of thing. That's why science, they played false games with us, and they used the Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang Theory is basically saying the Word is a sound. As soon as you emit a sound from yourself, you bring forth what you have within yourself. So I think I might have mentioned it on the last I was on, the persona. Once you look at the word persona, it means through sound. So we are basically a person or a character that only can manifest things in this physical plane, because we are here physically. We have to speak the word. That's what makes Sanskrit and Hebrew so important, because through Sanskrit, that's where you get the lam, vam, ram. You have to you have to say those, you have to vibrate those, because it sends it through the atmosphere, because as within, so without, the elements are within us, the elements are also are outside of us, and that's how we quote unquote manipulate the elements to create a physical reaction, basically called magic, or manifestation of something. So both of you were saying something really important, and that just made me think that with each one of these elements, you got the root, trunk, branch, and the fruit. Basically, that's fire, air, water, and earth. But they're all, so when you really look at it, as she says, the air is really not an element. All of them are really not an element. They're all combined together to make one electromagnetic or fluid force, which is the action that we will see by bringing. That's why there's that, words, there's death and life in the power of the tongue. So you can speak death upon your own self, or you can speak life upon your own self. So when we continuously, and I'm just using this as an example, and I'm gonna end it, that when we keep doing things like we say Black Lives Matter, that's why they put that force out there. It gives somebody to say, well, Puerto Rican lives matter too, white lives matter too, because that's only what's supposed to happen, because it's an opposing force. You have a push and you have a pull. So when you keep saying these things, I can't breathe, and all of this type of stuff, you're just vibrating these words, and you place them out there, so you're creating through these vibrational tonnage words, you're creating your own opposition. You understand what I'm saying?
Of course.
So we have to be careful about what we speak or what we don't speak. That's why, getting back to how you said the black and white mirror, if we don't face the fact of the reality of ourselves, and we don't speak the truth, then we will not have our trunk, which is basically our structural foundation. And if we don't speak the truth, we won't be coming from the root, which is the essence of ourself, not my character or my persona.
Right. Yeah, a few interesting things to note from that. One of the interesting things to note is the Black Lives Matter, right? I can't breathe. And like you said, they're very limiting, very polarizing. Well, check out what color black is associated with Saturn, right? I'm pretty sure that that's a very Saturnian energy that's being evoked with this whole ritual, this whole slicing, this whole stopping, right? But what was it that you said earlier? Yeah. The root, the seed words, the lam, the ram, the vam. I'd like to look a little bit more into those as far as why they work, because it's very difficult to believe that they work just because you say this three-letter word, ram, vam, lam. It's a little bit easier when you conceptualize that when you vibrate these words properly, it creates certain shapes and frequencies that have an effect on the outside. But this ties in to step one with initiation into hermetics, where it talks about the mystery of breathing and the mystery of eating and drinking. And in these steps, it talks about, who's that? I don't know who that is. In those steps, it talks about how when you breathe, you want to impregnate the air with well-being, with wholeness, positivity, abundance, and that type of thing. When you eat your food, you want to visualize and impregnate it with your intent. The same thing with the water. Now, for those of you who are following that step, when you're doing this breath, it's nothing special, right? The actual work is being done in visualization. The actual work is done in your mind. As far as the breathing, you breathe regularly, but you visualize your intent following the breath. So the magic isn't done with your breathing or your eating or your drinking. The magic is done with you directing that energy. right? So it's the same concept as you cleaning over your food or your water or the air that you breathe, except you're visualizing raw Akasha energy. You're using that higher mind that you're developing, right? Because now, like I said earlier in this call, when you observe yourself and you observe the animal thoughts and the animal nature and the reactions based on the emotions that you're experiencing, when you step out of that animal and you observe it, you're actually accessing a higher state of mind. You're going up the tree of life. You got to get used to being in that higher state. You got to get used to being rooted and grounded in that higher state so you can properly work from a higher plane, right? But when you're working from that state, when you start to pay attention to the frequencies, the energies around you, you can move them. You can't really move them when you're in that animal nature, when you're just reacting to stimulus like an amoeba or a worm. You don't have any power there. But when you put yourself in that higher mind and that observer, and you're looking down on that animal body and that animal nature and that animal essence, you're able to move energy better. So it's when you're in this mind and you breathe and you visualize the Akasha coming into your physical body, when you visualize the food that you're about to eat being impregnated with pure Akasha for well-being, it actually moves into your body. Now this eating becomes a symbolic process of ingesting goodwill. So likewise, just to take it full circle, when we talk about these root seed words, the lam, the ram, the vam, they're not just saying these words and humming. They're visualizing with their higher spirit, the Akasha traveling on they're imagining that force traveling on the form of their vibration. The lam, that vibration going on in my body and the atmosphere, that's a form. And that form is encapsulated with the force that I'm bringing down into the physical plane. That's why these things work.
Yeah. That's powerful, powerfully said. I think what it is, the more we contemplate what we're reading and what we're studying, we'll realize that we are the energy that is in the center of the atom. That's why when you get them Adam Kadmon, or you got Adam, the creating of the Bible, and God breathed into the nostrils of man, and man became a living soul. So the
Yes.
whole thing is, when you do those vibratory words, what you are actually doing is you're actually speaking to the atoms, the protons, the nucleus of yourself. That's that inertia, or that eternal movement that is basically the substance of our physical matter. So when we do that, the lam actually, or is symbolically in a form of a lotus or a padme, is basically nothing but the form of an atom. So what we're doing is we're opening up the communication between our physical self through the voice, breath, and sound, going back inward to vibrate the cellular podme, so we can communicate, or we can take out or extract the internal Akashic messages that's within our DNA structure, so we can have supreme intelligence, or become one. I and the Father are one. I am, I didn't, basically how Jesus, I didn't cover my own self. I came from the Father. God, you can't get to the Father unless you go to me. You can't communicate with yourself unless you vibrate high enough to speak to your atoms.
Vibrating high enough to speak to your atoms. That's what we're doing.
And once you and you know that once you vibrate high enough, you separate from the physical self, and now you're in the astral self, or you're outside of the physical form. So that's why you have monks. They do extreme shit. They meditate hanging themselves. Literally, they're hanging by their throats, and they're like this because they've transcended death. They can't die by hanging. You can beat them with sticks and hit them with a car. You might just bruise the bones and the flesh, but you can't kill the akasha. You understand what I'm saying? So that's the whole thing. So that's why you have to die before you die. And the only way you die is that you have to vibrate high enough to separate the character from the person, from the self, from the ego, from all the material, and now you pulling out this information, or the knowledge that's already there inside your cellular structure.
Right, right. Now, okay, so what you're saying about the lotus and about the cellular structure and separating, just like how Mike said, all these books are just conversations. All these examples that you're giving are just symbols that our mind can use as anchors to really move this energy around. To someone who doesn't have proper context, we're just talking big words and sounding smart. But to someone who has the context, someone who has the experience of actually doing the work and who can actually relate some of these words, what we're saying, we can use these symbolic references to conceptualize how this energy works. Because we're dealing with things that can't be explained logically or literally. Science has done the best job it can, poor thing, talking about a big bang out of nowhere and nothing made something. They're trying their best. But those of us who have an occult context, we understand that we have to use these symbols in order to kind of follow how this energy operates. And they give us an image of atoms, right? And isn't it strange and suspicious that atomic structure looks a lot like how they design the tree of life, with little circles and the lines connecting them? Isn't that curious? But what it's telling us is that there's a world of structure that is just like how they say that our body is constructed of DNA, which is these little strands. How is it these little strands contain all this information that make up who we are? It's because that's the smallest capsule of data, just like this is the smallest capsule of data. When you look at an actual DNA strand, it doesn't look like the computer generated image, but that's something for our brains to conceptualize and focus on. Likewise, when you talk about this lotus or the little DNA or the atomic structure within, we don't know what that really looks like, but we have an idea. So that helps us to have a focal point to expand our awareness and concentrate it on that aspect. I hope that's making sense, because I know that sounded kind of left and right, but I will be happy to.
That makes perfect sense. Just like, what's the most important, or some consider the yod to be the most important Hebrew letter, because the yod actually represents, or the dot represents, what's called God. So the yod, so the whole dot, and we know is when you get into symbolic, the sun is a circle and a dot in the middle. Before a line is formed, you place the pencil down, that lead makes a dot, and then everything else stems from that. So just going back to what you said, that dot is the beginning, is that cell, just like the tree of life. When you look at that now with the open eyes of a occultist or whatever, you now see that tree of life is actually a helix of the DNA.
Yes, that's what I was getting at. Yes, that's what I was trying to say.
So that's what it is. So the tree of life. So now once you keep looking at, because it's just like in the Matrix when he was reading the screen and all he saw was lines and letters. That's what I see. When I look at specific things, all I see is helix and tree of lives and spheres, and I see the attributes of things. I don't actually see what the person is demonstrating from their conditioned existence. I see the actual coded information that they don't even really know that they fitting into grand play, you know, or the grand architecture that's being developed and brought forth.
Yes. And when you're seeing life through this type of perspective, it's so hard to go back to saying, look what they doing to us. Oh, they killing us. Oh, we having a race war. Oh, coronavirus. You start to learn that all that stuff is simply a distraction from what the hell we're talking about right now.
The virus is the mind control. The virus is the implanting or the meme. A meme is not just a picture that, you know, has a little funny words. A meme is, in the military, the meme is all kind of stuff. Words, photos, music. That's why when you go into when you're like in Iraq or Kandahar or something like that, you have some guys on their tanks, they're playing death metal as they enter these Muslim towns. These people had never heard no death metal being played as they come. And so that's already creating a mind distraction as they're driving, they're coming into with the death machines. You understand what I'm saying? So that's the virus. The virus is saying, you know, we got COVID-19 started in September of 2019 and Wuhan, and then now it's the military made it. No, the scientists made it. No, America made it. And that is the COVID-19. So the more people sit and they watch the news or they listen to the radio or they watch these celebrities and everybody got masks on, you are now being put into a weakened environment. You're not supposed to, there is no people on this planet in any time frame that continuously walked around with a mask on their face, that walked around in fear. We didn't exist on this planet for millions and billions of years. Now all of a sudden in 2020, we thinking that it's the fucking end of the world. Now it's gonna end. You gotta be kidding me. So that's the virus. The virus is all of this. The virus is them killing. We know there's a reality to this thing on here. The virus is that a police officer or a public official can have a working camera on his body that records everything, but they still murder somebody with the working camera on. That right there shows you that it's a virus, that they're implanting a virus within us. By showing it to you, and then it goes viral. Listen to what videos are called. Once the video goes, it gets a certain amount of algorithmic numbers. It's called going viral.
Right.
So we fall right into the magic. You know what I mean?
Right.
It makes me laugh, man, actually.
And this is what I love about Kabbalah. The beauty of the Kabbalah is that it's the answer to what I've been searching for as long as memory serves. Ever since I was young, something in me told me that there was a connecting line between all spirituality, all religions, and I just knew one day I'd find it. And I found it here in Kabbalah. And what I'm learning is it's not just religion and spirituality. Everything connects. Everything can be lined up and categorized with this system of 10 circles, 22 lines. Everything from, like you said, the mimetic viruses of the internet, to politics, to the human body. Everything can be categorized using the structure. It is perfect. It is literally perfect. The hunt is over. Now for me, the hunt is to fully dig as deep as I can.
Very true.
And I kind of think that's what the author meant. And when she said, using this system, it is possible to unravel the relationships of all manner of cosmic factors if the correct Hebrew spelling of the names of power is known. For these names were formulated in accordance with the principles of gematria. That's what everything that we're doing is a mathematical equation. Everything that we see, everything on the news, it's all gematria. It's all a mathematical. That's why
Right.
we'll see you live at 5 and again at 11. You know what I mean? They got all of this stuff mapped out, you know?
Just like what Mike was saying about the numbers, and just like what you were saying about the Hebrew, right?
Yeah.
It hasn't changed. We're just not using it in our day-to-day speech. The power,
Mm.
the power's still in that language.
Mm.
We're not using it. We're using a dead and powerless language. We're using the perfect dead language. It's been in the works and created hundreds of years. Now it's ready and packaged up to give to the animals and to the slave class, right? This little English. Meanwhile, like
Mm.
gematria, the Hebrew, is still being used. It's still being put to use, just not by, you know, homie and ho over there.
Yeah. You know, I want to say something too that I've noticed. Um, when I was in church, when I was going to ministry school, and when I got out of ministry school and I started keeping in contact with a couple of the guys I went to school with, I started realizing that the more those particular students actually study for themselves, the more they moved away from the church, or they at least became what we termed liberal in the doctrine. But then I've noticed too that people who got when you go to ministry school, one of the things you learn about is Hebrew and Greek. Um, and when you start learning how to actually in these words for yourself, you naturally come to question a lot of things, and you naturally come to a different conclusion that can almost make you be labeled as a heretic. And I find it very interesting how language really opens up, um, study of language is really opening up doors to real understanding of all of this stuff. Because you would get people that would argue so much about the Bible and so much about their interpretation of it, but nobody would ever go deep into studying the language, which to me, from now that I look back at it, always seems to be the key to a lot of those brothers and sisters that actually studied in the language. They tend to not be so conservative in their word and conservative in their interpretation of the scripture. And some of them even in our turn. I was in the Church of Christ, so people leaving the church was like, oh, you going back into denominational world and stuff. And so I would see, why would these people keep, this was a consistent thing that I would see. People would study for themselves, and then they would study the language, and then they would leave the church, or they would become liberal, or they would be more loose in their doctrine and their belief system. And a lot of this stuff when it comes to languages, is I'm finding that it's more important than what I used to than I thought, you know. And it's not that you got to know all languages, but having a language that has its basis in mathematics um, is definitely something that warrants people to at least study. They may not be able to speak it fluently, but definitely understanding how these things break down, because that was very key in understanding of scripture, you know.
And like you said, it's not even about having to know a complete second language. That can help,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, but
Mm-hmm.
it's more of just understanding that you're dealing with something other than what you're used to, right? And I don't know, maybe that's what happens. You either follow the Bible blindly from your pastor, or you do your own research. And I was one of those people where I look at the scripture and I'd really want to know what it meant. So I went to go look up the Hebrew, right, to see what exactly those words meant. And then I began to think, wow, this King James version, there's so much that's changed from the original meaning. So you just keep digging naturally. Clearly, I don't read Hebrew, but I know enough to kind of, know what I'm saying, know what I'm working with. The same thing goes for this Kabbalah science. You don't have to know Hebrew. It'll help, obviously, but to just know that there's something other than the English language, that alone helps to expand to broaden your horizon. Because like we said in the last video, we can only think in terms of the words and concepts that we have, right? We can't think outside of the English language. But when you get to learn about Hebrew and the other languages and the possibilities, now we're beginning to be able to have something to cling on to when we expand from English. Django talked about the yod, right? We don't know what the hell that is. There's nothing in English to compare that. But when you think about the Hebrew language, we see that the Hebrew language is symbolic. And for us English speaking people to understand it, we have the tarot to refer to, right? The yod corresponds with Kether and it corresponds with all the aces. So if you understand tarot, you know that the aces represent an initiation, right? The ace of wands, that's more of an initiation into the fire element.
Mm. Please, or was that me?
Right? The Ace of Cups, Yod is masculine, it's penetrating. It's a lot like Venus aspect, penetrator. Yod encapsulates. But thinking symbolically helps us to understand how we can think about the universe. Language barriers. Talk about virus, right? English language is a virus. It keeps us contained within 26 letters.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's crazy. Like when I just mentioned earlier, as a little side note, like denomination, like the word denomination is a commercial term to use for money. You know, dealing with currency and stuff. And so when you're dealing with the churches and them being 501s, like, yeah, it's you'll be surprised, man. So much stuff that we just throw out there, we don't even understand what we're saying.
Consider.
Yeah. Wow.
And just thinking about those empty ass arguments that people have about their opinions on the interpretation of the Bible, their opinions not even backed up by research. What a waste of time. People trying to decode revelations without an understanding of occult symbology. That's a sad look, man. You got people talking about, when's the rapture coming and what are the locusts going to look like and what are the angels going to do? And we got 4 horsemen on the way in the Antichrist.
Yeah, I used to think those things were really gonna come out of the sky. I was looking up a long time ago.
Me too.
But and Dion says this too. I don't remember ever recalling in ministry school them mentioning anything about Kabbalah ever. Because if they did, man, I really think a lot of people would wake up.
Just a cursory glance into it would open up a rabbit hole that's extremely tempting to dive into, especially if you're really passionate about the word, about the Bible, about Christ, about the religion. If you're actually very passionate about it and somebody threw the Kabbalah at you, that's a wrap.
But the whole thing with religion is not to wake anybody up. It's to keep you bound in. It's a controlled system for people who want someone to control them. Most religious people traditionally just want to go to church on a Sunday just to like it's like buying some of them cheap phone chargers from the dollar store, the gas station. You can use it for a little while.
Yeah.
But then that thing's not going to work too much. You can't even use some of these cheap chargers with an iPhone. You got to get a real authentic iPhone charger.
Right.
So the whole thing, some of these churches is like a fake phone charger. You may go to, you get there, you go in there, you get a little feel good, then you go home, and it's basically back now your power back down to 15%. So the whole thing is religion don't want you to be 100%. It wants you to be 10%. It wants you to be 15%. Some religions want you to have no percentage. They want you to come, they want you to pay your tithes, your offerings, and your love offering, and ship
love
you right
offering.
on up out of there. You know what I mean? So
The love offering.
the love offering, and that's the true offering right there. Give if you feel like giving something. If you don't, you don't. You give out of love. You know what I mean? So they don't. It's just religion is such a adolescent game. You know, such a sad game.
And so learning what I'm learning about Kabbalah and putting it into context, I'm starting to see that everything is perfect. There's a place for these things. There's a place for the masses, which means there's a place for religion. And I wouldn't really say it in terms of, oh, they're using it to control people, because they are. But instead of looking at it in an antagonistic way, I see it as the human animal needs some way to express its desire for union
Hmm.
with the Most High. It's intrinsic to us. So religion is there as a way to satiate that.
Mhm.
Because for the most part, people are chasing the pleasure, right? Chasing the satisfaction of their pleasures and avoiding their pains. That's life for the human animal across the planet. Now, we do have that desire to connect with God, so we go to church on Sunday and we satisfy that. And we get back to chasing the pleasure and running away from pain. That's just how it goes. It's not good, it's not bad. That's just how it goes. Religion is there to keep that balance, and that's perfect. Meanwhile, there's a deeper study for those of us who, again, are utilizing that higher mind, who utilizing a mind that is above and beyond chasing pleasure or running away from pain. So even though we could throw the Kabbalah out there and get on the TV screen and say, hey, everybody, wake up, this, that, and the third, it's not going to work because the human animal doesn't want to wake up. Right across from my desk here where I read, there is a picture, and I'm going to flip my camera around to show it. All right. So as I'm studying Kabbalah every day, this is what I see. And it relates. It entirely relates to everything we're talking about. Right? I see on the left, man, this is the masses. This is spirit. This is force and form, as above, so below. This picture tells everything. Look at how this dude, look at how he's not even trying. Yet look at how hard he's trying. He's got the whole effort of heaven behind him, trying to get this man, trying to get the masses to wake up, trying to get matter to animate, spirit trying to get matter to animate, as above, so below. Look at how dead matter is. Matter doesn't give a fuck. Matter isn't going to put forth any effort unless it has to do with food or sex, right? Just like people today, nothing changes. It remains the same. So religion is kind of in place just to kind of keep that satiated. But there's a certain group of us that actually come from this plane of existence and we're seeking to return. Meanwhile, there's others from this plane and they're happy where they are.
Interesting. He is so lackadaisical. He is just like, whatever, dude. Touch me if you like. I've never looked at that picture like that before.
I
So,
think that this is, uh-oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say something before we wrap it up. Kabbalah, this whole Kabbalah journey for me has been really enlightening. And I think that studying the mystical Kabbalah and the Hermetic initiation into Hermetics was a really good decision on your part, Travis, because I like the whole black and white mirror
Mhm.
I've really been able to see some parts of myself that I wasn't able to see before. And one of those parts was I thought I was over my bias of the Christian religion and all that. I thought I was over that. And I realize now that I'm studying the Kabbalah that I'm not over it. I mean, I'm starting to be. I'm I'm realizing that I have to get past my history with religion. And I think that's one of the reasons why I stayed away from Kabbalah all these years, even though I've studied so many other spheres of magic and mysticism. And it's because of its connection to Judeo Christianity and all that. And I realize now that it has less to do with that than I thought.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
the words and the ideas in the Kabbalah are very much symbolic and not religious at all. And so through the initiation to Hermetics, I feel like I've been able to identify this blockage, this shadow
Mhm.
kind of uh trait of mine. And
Mhm.
I really thought I was over that shit,
Yeah.
honestly.
Mhm.
And the Kabbalah has been extremely tumultuous for me to learn, and I appreciate it because of that. But um, it's so overwhelming because part of me has always felt a connection to these ideas, to the Hebrew words and the Bible itself. But I've
Mhm.
always denied it because I've hated religion my whole life.
Right.
And
Mhm.
Right.
so now I can see that the Bible for what it truly is, and the symbolism behind it. And it's almost like freeing for me. It's like
Mhm.
a
Yeah.
weight has been lifted off of me. Like I don't have to hate the word Jesus. I don't have to,
Mhm.
you know, have this disdain anymore. And I honestly didn't think I had it. I thought I'd been over that, but I wasn't. And so the two books together it's really been extremely enlightening for me to read. Yeah, so it's just been crazy for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I find
That's
that
beautiful.
unfortunately that seems to be a roadblock for a lot of people, the whole religious aspect. Um, I think somebody was trying to argue with me in the Magus Society group because I made the post about it in the name of Jesus, and he's off going off on how Jesus wasn't real, and uh, why do you have to use the name of this other thing, and it makes you powerless because you're having to rely on something that the shit that people have been saying on the internet to try to sound deep for years. But this
Yeah.
goes beyond that, right? Like you said, it's deeper than that. We don't have to antagonize the name Jesus. It's not about whether or not it was a person. It's about what does that symbol actually represent. It's an aspect of your higher self. Jesus Christ, that is a symbol of the higher self. That's a symbol of Tiferet, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing to do with our
Definitely.
emotions and what the pastor did or said and how he's taking the money to go to the club and buy a car. It has nothing to do with any of that human shit. Unfortunately, a
Hmm.
lot of us get wrapped up in what the humans have done to make us upset, and we apply that to the religion that these people claim to be a part of. But
Mhm.
when, when Isaac says in the name of Jesus, you know what I'm saying, and a manifestation happens instantly, has nothing to do with was Jesus real, has nothing to do with Caesar Borgia. That's you're getting lost. It has everything
Hmm.
to do with the force behind Tiferet, right? And how Tiferet is a pure channel for Kether to manifest through Yesod, through Malkuth. That's what it has to do with. And the fact that you can use that phrase in the name of Jesus to channel that energy.
Mhm.
Mm.
Nothing to do
And the
with
fact that I even had a problem with the word Jesus or any of that just showed to me that I wasn't ready in the past, like to get onto a higher kind of form of study. Like I was stuck in some kind of rut or something. And so I now can see that, and I feel like, you know, it's changed me, this book, Mystical Kabbalah.
yes.
It really has.
Yes.
Cassandra,
Yeah.
I wanted to just say that I had the exact same experience. And I've told John and them about it before. I've had that exact same experience. That weight lifting off the shoulder that you mentioned. Once you
Yeah.
come into understanding of that, I don't have to be upset at anything. I was actually probably on, that my intention was good, but it was, I just needed a little tweaking, and it gives perspective for many other things that you go off to study, and you start to look at the other things that you might, go off to study to say, since I've had this experience with Christianity or the Bible or Kabbalah, could I be looking at other things in my life similarly? And so I agree with you. I felt that exact same way. And it's definitely freeing because you realize that you can use all things. All things are really your footstool. And this is where um, Dion Fortune at the end, that's where I found it at the end of it's at the end of chapter 10, verses 20, when she talks about temple not made with hands. Those are references to scripture, and when she's dropping those little hints, it makes it puts a lot of things in perspective. It puts these things together like, oh, if you read the Bible,
Mhm.
and she's dropping those little things, she's almost like letting you know, like, yeah, this is what this is referring to in some aspects, and it makes you appreciate the work that you've put in the past. If you've ever toiled in Christianity or dealing with the Bible, that it's some assurity that, hey, I was barking up the right tree, but I just needed to continue to keep
Yeah.
searching, so yeah.
And it makes me sad to think of all the years I've wasted hating something for no reason. And
Yeah.
like yesterday, I actually, like when I realized this yesterday, it was actually just yesterday. I like started crying. It was so bizarre. Like I just it was such a huge weight that it like really struck me emotionally to have it gone, you know? So yeah, it was really crazy.
An interesting thing that happens when you start taking meditation seriously and start taking your walk on the tree of life seriously is that a lot of people report a rush of emotions that comes up.
Mhm.
So
I've
yeah,
definitely been going through that lately.
sounds like you're on the right path. When that
Yeah.
rush of emotions come up, that's literally a roadblock being broken through. That's the water being broken. That's you pushing through to that next level.
Mm.
That's good to
What
know.
time to be doing it? Welcome to Cancer season, right?
Mm,
A new birth in water,
Right.
broken water, new birth. Yeah.
Birth.
We should call this stream New Birth Ministries.
New Birth Ministries.
There you go.
On behalf of all the members of New Birth Ministries, welcome, welcome, welcome.
well, anyway, thank you, Travis, for doing this book study stuff because it's really helped me personally.
Awesome. Awesome. You're very welcome. My pleasure, honestly. This is you know, what I'd be doing anyways, but the fact that there are people like you that are interested and you know what I'm saying, take this seriously, I honor that. That's fucking awesome.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Oh,
Well,
can y'all hear me?
Yes, you can.
Just really quickly from what Michael asked about the feminine energy having anything to say with the books. Um, sorry, I'm also on YouTube. My bad. When he asked about, oh, if any of the ladies have anything to say, just a quick thing with that. I think the feminine energy doesn't really speak about or put their, 2 cents into it because of how logical the books are. And the feminine energy more looks at the spiritual side of stuff. So, like how I said in the chat over here with seeing that figure when I was 7 covering my ears in church. In the book, in the Hermetics and the Kabbalah, it doesn't really speak about that, seeing the spirits like that. It just speaks of the energy. So from my perspective, it's, oh, okay, I'm just seeing things. This doesn't really correlate to the energy. You get what I'm saying?
Mm, mm.
so that being said, like, from your experience, it's more than just energies, is what you're saying.
I think she made I think I get what she was saying, and I'll kind of look at it from how she said from the Kemetic tree of life. Man, our thinking is more syllogistical, logical, sabek. Women, they're thinking, and I'm speaking from the Pout and the Tiru, which is the Kemetic tree of life. The feminine energy is like Offset or Heru. It's congregative and imagination, devotional. You know, that's kind of why when you look at religious systems from a historical point of view, men were always the pastors. They were the ones that always, they're vocal and they're always doing. The women were the ones, even when you look at it from a biblical point of view, Jesus, he was really kind when it came to Mary Magdalene, and when it came to the other Mary, they were really devoted to him. It was the women's houses in the Bible that churches or gatherings were most of the times held at. So basically, so if I'm catching her correct, is more women are more. You have to on the Kemetic tree of life, you have to deal with the Auset sphere, which is the ninth sphere. You have to go into the trance state of yourself so you can reawaken back up to the realization of Asar. So that's why Auset, who is the Kemetic term for Isis, she was devoted to finding the body parts of Asar to put them back together, and then she buried them under the water, which is symbolic of the deep inner trance state. It's easier for the feminine energy to go into a transcendental state than it is for, so to say, a masculine energy, because we're syllogistic. We're logical. That's not logical, Captain. You know, we're Dr. Spock sometimes. You know, if I heard her correctly.
Okay, that puts it in perspective. Yeah, that definitely puts it in perspective.
The women are feminine, more left brain, masculine. Feminine, more right brain, and masculine, more left brain.
Yes.
Well, you know, Franz Barton talks about how water is magnetic, um, and how when you program the water at cooler temperatures, um, it tends to be more magnetic the cooler or colder it is.
And I
So
think oh, sorry, Mike.
no. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go
And I
ahead.
think because I'm monitoring the YouTube chat as well, a lot of people are grasping the logical side of it, but they don't know how to like kind of correlate it because of how technical it talks. Because when he was talking about eating and drinking the water and programming it and impregnating it with your thought, the the men will get it. Basically, the men will get it easier, or if you're more logical, you'll get it faster. But if you're more on the feminine side, you're gonna be like, "What?" Um, so how I kind of correlate it with my studies is when he's speaking logically. As I'm reading, I kind of picture it as how when I used to just work with the energies and not really read, how Oshun will tell me, "Oh, imagine the water turning yellow and then drink it." You know what I'm saying? So the energies would like speak to me in a person type of form and then tell me how to work through these techniques. And then when I read the book, it's like, oh, that's what they were telling me.
So do you think you somebody using more descriptive language, and when they're trying to break something down using more descriptive language could help with facilitating those visuals for I guess the feminine aspect to grasp what is being said?
Yes.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yes, how because how we always break down movies and movie night, how we always have to pick up the symbolism. It's not so blatant in your face if you're not like, yes, you have the logical aspect, like, oh, they're using red to tap into the root chakra. But on the feminine side, they're showing that's how they tap into your emotions. That's how when you see red on the screen, you get either agitated or however they want you to feel. But if you're only looking at it in a logical point of view, you're not going to really know why red is making you feel so angry. You get what I'm saying? You're just going to know red equals anger, but you're not going to know how it's going to correlate to you. So you're still kind of lost with the information. You get what I'm saying?
That's deep. You know, I'm gonna go back to the tree of life of the Commission tree of life and I just reuse Het Heru again. And Het Heru correlates to Oshun. So it's like a Het Heru is more active, instinctive, and impulsive. And on the left side, the opposing force, or the opposite celestial worker of Het Heru is Sebek, who's he's passive, he's cognitive, he's conditioned, he's about thinking, he's about thought, he's about rationalization. That's how a lot of us get our information, because that's how we've been brought up in the system of a male generated type of system. And and women are more, that's why you got to think about it, it's based on a basic level. Women give birth. So they are the early seat of learning. So once you even go into symbolic of a throne, the first throne is the mother's lap. So that's why when you study ancient Kemetic systems of pharaohship and kingship, the mother crowned the pharaoh. She made him king. She groomed him to be king of the nation because she was the early seat of learning. So the feminine energy is instinctive. So as she says, you know, the color red, that we would see the color red and we would think a totally different way. We'll try to analyze that thing. A woman would see the kind of color red being used or something like, and they would feel it. They would not be able. I'm not gonna say they won't be able, but they wouldn't give some long-winded breakdown of why this color red. They would just be like, well, it is because it just showed what it was. You didn't see it. You didn't feel it. And we'll be like, nah, it just was a red cover. I don't know, it was silk or something. You know what I mean? We wouldn't feel it like that.
Mm. That's really interesting. You know, do you think there could be a reason as to why? Do you think there could be also a reason as to why the books are written like that, or they decide that it has to be written in that way without some of these books have to be written in such a logical fashion than it is more of descriptive? Do you think there's some of these authors, it's a method to it, or is it something that's a default that they just default to because they have to put it down to get the information out? Or do you think there's something, another aspect to why these books or some of these books decide to write it down in a logical format the way they do, if that kind of makes sense? You think there's anything else to it, or?
I think it has a lot to do with the tradition that these authors are coming from. They're coming from the Hermetic order, which is extremely left brain, Hermes, Mercury. Now, what we learned from basic magic is that there's also an Orphic order, and that is more right brain, more abstract, more emotive, more intuitive, and that comes from, you know, the Venus sphere. But in particular, these authors that that I focus on come from the Hermetic order. So it's mostly logic, left brain, descriptive, verbalized, Mercury, you know.
That makes sense. I think what he said, I think it's all of that. What he just said. Now I'll use masonry as an example. Like when I went through masonry, you got three steps. You got the inner apprentice, you have the fellow craft, and you have the master mason. That right there, that's called the blue house. The blue house is the foundation of masonry. I don't care if a person is a 33rd degree mason, which is an invited degree. You have to be invited to become a 33rd degree. You got to have something that, as a collective, they can use you for money or use some sort of whatever. But when you want to go up the degrees and go into the 4th, 5th, 6th, and all the other houses, those are called the spiritual houses. Those now deal with, you got to now learn Hebrew. Those are dealing with the key of Solomon. That's dealing with all spiritual stuff. That's not dealing with the first 3 degrees, which is teaching you to be a mason, about utilizing your intelligence and being circumspect in your actions, and utilizing your common gavel and your 24-inch rule and stuff like that. Those are all the physical things of man. So when he said, do we think it kind of is a it's also dealing with the energies of how the planets operate. There's a patriarchal energy and there's a matriarchal energy. Everything goes in ebbs and flows. At a particular time, it's the feminine energy, and at another time, it's the masculine energy. Now the high wizards. Now that's how I label those in power who also are called the elite. They are wizards. They have studied this very same information that we've studied. They just are they're Palpatines. They're those kind of people. They're Sith lords who sit back and control actions and stuff like that. So what they do is, being that they know astrology, cosmology, a gematria in Hebrew and Sanskrit, they were capable of traveling the globe and go robbing graves of Tutankhamun and all that. They know how to manipulate the masculine and the feminine systems. So as you said, that during the particular cultural time period, or the Hermetica, or the arcane school of teaching that the particular information come from, it was going to come from a syllogistical, logistical, male perspective, because the feminine energy has always been, since particular time periods, have been repressed and suppressed, because the woman is actually is very powerful. You know, that's why when you study tantric kundalini systems, and you go through particular rituals, you are supposed to worship the woman in her physical form, as is the physical manifestation of all the Devis. She in her womb has all the births of the gods come forth from her. So I think, like Michael said, that it's all of that comes into play. It also comes into play the particular atmosphere of the author, the particular energy of masculine and feminine, the particular energy of the cultural school of thought, and also by manipulation of people who are high wizards or high magicians who don't focus on left hand path or right hand path. They focus on their middle path, which is whatever the fuck they want to do, and it goes their way or the fucking highway, you know. So I think it's all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think why on a bigger scale, why a lot of this stuff is male generated is because I remember Panic talking about his story of how Oshun said that love left the world, something like that, and the spear shifted to more masculine. And now we're seeing the feminine energy rise. So now we're gonna, because now Beyonce came out with a song. Also, disclaimer: brace yourselves. All of the supplies are about to be gone. Um, stock up now, Walmart and Dollar Tree. Um, she dropped a song and she mentioned Oshun and I believe Oya in it, and you know how big her fan base is and how
Oh,
Froze. Oh, Jay, you hit mute. You muted yourself. Jay, you muted yourself. Oh, okay.
I think
She said some distractions
she
came up.
got some distractions.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's absolutely right, and that's kind of what I meant about how thing goes in. It goes in cycles, and it goes in wavelengths, and it goes from masculine, and it goes to feminine. See, I as a man, and maybe and she as a woman, we only represent physically the polarity of the image. We are actually the electric and magnetic fluid vibration, which is the demonstrated action of the energy. So by me being male, it doesn't necessarily make me more important or anything. Is I'm just a representative of the energy, you know. So I think that she hit it when she said things are going more towards the feminine energies. That's why everybody is so sensitive, and I speak these words not in belittling the woman. I'm just using what I have to be descriptive. That everybody is very sensitive. Everything is emotionally charged and very impulsive. You know, those are considered, and it's not to be derogatory or anything. Those are considered feminine aspects. I don't know. Is Trav still there?
Yes. Hello?
Yeah, just giving the floor for anybody. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to see, me personally, just like to see everybody's perspectives, you know.
Yeah.
But I find that very interesting, because I never really thought about it like that. Um, you know, um, yeah.
Hello,
Hmm.
is my mic on?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh dear. Okay. I don't know how far I got, but I was just saying, as someone who works with energy, I'm noticing that with the mask situation, and with the elevated political climate, that there is I guess, a feminine presence kind of swooping back in. I'm noticing that with people covering their faces, the need to communicate in other ways is kind of coming back online. So there is a lot of talking through the eyes or talking with the hands or just, I guess, the ability to communicate intuitively. It seems to be getting a bit more prevalent by necessity. That's just what I've noticed and picked up on. As far as the materials that we've been covering, I so appreciate that it's so left brained and so straightforward, because with all the other material that I've read thus far has been comparatively airy fairy, taking me off on tangents. Whereas this
Shit.
material keeps me on the straight and narrow, and I'm able to integrate what I'm experiencing in ways that I can't express in English. They're doing it perfectly, and I'm able to integrate everything. And one day I'll be able to, I guess, explain how it's affecting me, because whenever I'm reading the material, I'm like, as Liv was saying, I'm going off into these sensual realms. I'm experiencing it through color. I'm experiencing it through ritual and feeling, and sometimes that's beyond words.
Mm,
Yes.
mm,
I'm glad you said that, because that also reminds me one of the reasons why I myself stick to the Hermetic path is because you use the word airy fairy. You know, when you look online for all this occult stuff, this magic stuff, a lot of it, it's a bunch of words that sound good but don't mean anything, right? Or it gives you a piece of something, but not much in the realm of understanding, right? It gives you, oh, the vibrations of the frequencies of the spirits, and oh, like that stuff sounds good and it satisfies a part of you, just like church satisfies a part of the general public. But I like to go deeper. What do you mean by that? How does that relate to me? How can I use that? Where does this come from? Is this really your real phone number? Right? I like to really break down these things. So because of that, I at least try to keep it very left brain. because I don't want anybody to come up to me and say, well, Trav, you aren't making any sense. You just making that up. No, I can point to the book and then give you a logical explanation. But you know.
Mm.
some people
But
prefer-
isn't that kind of like the process of what we're trying to do anyway for our subconscious mind is through the sexual intercourse, type of, through mental sex of taking the logic, the masculine principle, and impregnating the feminine aspect, the subconscious mind with this information. So isn't that like a natural thing that kind of takes course anyway, mentally?
Hmm.
Careful, it's Father's Day.
Oh shit.
So if you're going that direction, then what? So I guess it would be quite infertile to be just all airy fairy, or to be just all logic, Mr. Spot, right? So there has to be a healthy combination, a healthy dose.
You know something that I noticed when he just said that? I just looked at a note that I took from the initiation into hermetics. How I said they be hiding keys in their words. He describes soul as her and spirit as his or him. So he attributes the feminine to the soul and the masculine to the spirit. So when you read, like, you go to Genesis, when it says, and the earth was without form of void and darkness upon the face of the deep, and the spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Spirit is, as I said, is this masculine, it's this energetic movement of doing something. The soul would be like a woman. She's she's more of that inner calmness, that things that are beautiful, things that are artistic, things that are expressive. Men would just be the tools. How we would carve the hammer and the chisel of the actual expression of the beauty, but the essence of beauty and expression is the woman, or is that feminine uh essence. She would be the water that the spirit moved upon, and then there was light. So that right there, even when you read that from a kabbalistic, occultic point of view, that right there was an act of love making. That saying that they came together in the beginning. God created the heaven and the earth. He created that thing because he had this woman who was the water, who he had to move his spirit across there, and then boom, and the birth that they gave birth to was awareness, was light. Light brings awareness. Light in the supreme mathematics is knowledge. Then wisdom is woman. So yeah.
Indeed.
I think you muted yourself, TK Trav.
Yeah, Travis, you muted, man. I can't hear him.
Why is he muted?
I'm just moving my lips. Yeah. So what you just said right there. Let's also take a look at the cover of Initiation into Hermetics, and what do you see happening at the very top of that sphere?
I was just thinking about that. I was just thinking about that picture.
Mhm. What's going on?
Man
up
looking
here
at
in
the
the
woman.
cup?
Boo 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 boo. Do 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 do.
That's the natural state of existence. They
Yeah.
say that when you reach orgasm, you're reaching that state for a split second, and then you're coming back. That's what they say. I don't know who they is. I don't know why they say that, but I think it illustrates a nice point. right?
Hmm,
Yeah.
it is nice.
I was meditating on that photo, or the painting, of man reaching down to touch Adam. And knowing all this stuff about Kabbalah and symbology and the occult, I knew I was going to find some correspondences there. So I'm like, let me count how many of these little angels are holding up God. Can anybody guess how many there are?
72. Oh no, I'm
10.
sorry.
Yeah. 10 little cherubims holding him up. So
Oh
40.
shit.
And right behind him is a very tired looking female doing most of the heavy lifting, which would make the 11.
No way.
Yeah.
Now you're gonna make me find that picture and look.
I don't know the name of it, but you know. So there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I believe. Yeah, I think it was 10. Or is that 3 right there?
Michelangelo painted that, right?
Is it Michelangelo or Da Vinci?
I think.
I
Okay.
think it's Da Vinci.
I think it's there. You're right.
Look at this dude. I don't know what's worse. The fact that this dude is just like, or the fact that he's trying so hard. Like,
I've never looked at that like that before.
I don't know which one is worse. Like, this is like, you can't save the world. Masses don't give a shit.
Holy,
It really
this
speaks
whole body
volumes.
language sucks, man.
Yeah.
Kind of shows how God needs this physical plane more than we need God.
Damn.
Mm.
But y'all not ready for that. Dun, dun, dun,
Or
dun.
what if it is that the physical plane, that God realizes how much the physical plane needs him more than we realize it. You know what I'm saying? There's balance here. There's balance. It's not imbalanced at all. There is balance.
And
But you just got to look that there's opposites. There's polarity, right?
is that an M in the
Mind
middle?
and matter. Look at
So,
her.
so wait, so you're saying that those are demons or what is that? Angels?
No, I'm saying the
Either.
10 Sephiroth, of the Tree of Life.
Oh shit.
Nothing.
Yeah, you know something? I really didn't even picture that.
Look at her.
Who's that? Eve?
She's so tired. She's
She's
tired of dealing with his
pulling
bullshit. So she
on-
does it
He's
to
sick
correct
of the
him.
way this dude is looking at God.
Oh, God loves creation more than he's paying attention to her.
Like, why are you trying to reach so hard for this dude? He's a freaking bum. He lays on this rock all day long.
Ignoring the
China.
divine feminine.
I'm over here with all this essence, and he's just laying around on this freaking rock.
They got the whole family carrying this dude.
You know what I'm saying?
Look at how much weight this one's bearing.
He's not even face forward.
Look at this dude.
She looks like she about to drop him. Like, you know what? Whatever.
She's so done with it. She is so through.
Yeah, you are hilarious. I have never looked at a picture like this ever, man.
But he's so
All
focused.
All the angels
The
are
son and the father are focused as hell, and the mother's just sitting there like, really?
This dude's about to pass out.
He is such, and it's called the creation of Adam. He's such a bum. Like, he's just whatever, man.
That's the name of the paint, the creation of Adam?
It's called the creation of Adam.
That is fucked up.
No, but even though it's funny, there's also a deeper occult significance. This is the generation of life, as according to Kether coming down to Malkuth. This is the process of Kether going down to Malkuth.
Maybe because he's so full of, he's so densified, he can't move. You know what I mean?
Ooh.
Also, I noticed how the children and the female are both like they're holding up God, so they're kind of closer to him than the one laying there, trying to like, balance it out.
Maybe what we're seeing, the separation of God from man, and man
Ooh.
being that he's looked so
Oh,
lackadaisical, but he forgot that that's
That's
his.
they
that's
going backwards. They
that's
going backwards,
Yeah,
huh?
they're
history.
That's
separating.
crazy.
The separation.
Going
Because
backwards.
when
Yes.
we took history of art, that's the first thing that they told us. That was the separation of the divine with humanity.
That's it.
Splitting
Separation.
apart.
Mhm.
He doesn't even
That's
realize it.
That's Malkuth, and that's Kether. God is Kether, and Adam is Malkuth. The separation.
That's the whole tree. That's the whole tree.
You're right. The whole tree.
We're about to make people want to go to the museum again.
You know,
Well, shit, I'm making people buy books. Let's keep it going, right? Let's keep it pushing.
Ticket price is about to go sky high.
you're right, because I've been noticing the book prices going up.
Right?
Mhm.
What?
I'm officially an influencer. They gave me a certificate and everything. Congratulations, Travis May.
Oh my God! But now when you look at the whole picture, there's more stuff going on under Adam. There's like a woman under him, and
What? There's
Put
more?
it back. Put it back. Put it back. Put the picture back.
like there's more stuff going on in this picture.
Oh, so I just got a piece of it.
The piece, because you got to think that's painted on top of the Sistine Chapel. Hold on, let me see if you can see. You see under him?
1 and 7. I mean, 1 and 6, 7. Interesting.
You see under Adam? Look.
That 3
Wait,
and that 13.
talk again because it went away. Say something else.
Look at under him.
Oh yeah, a woman. Holy shit.
And then look at under
really?
God. There's something under there too. So those are the pillars of heaven. So I think under him, when you look at this whole, because that's painted on the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican, there's a whole heavenly thing going on.
Mm-hmm. I can picture that heavenly thing under there.
Mhm. That heavenly thing.
Look at this here. We're gonna have to make a trip to Rome. We're heading to the Sistine Chapel.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm up for that. Shit.
Let's go teach the Kabbalah in fucking Rome.
Well, it's not for nothing, but the Pope, because you know how the Pope is actually fucking Christian, right? I mean, he's Catholic. Of course, I come from the Catholic background. It's like many of you guys. So one of the things that he tried to do is to actually try to get some kind of like a conjunction of like religion between the Buddhism or like this influenced monk that they have from India. I don't know what his name it is, guys, but the point was that the Pope was trying to get some kind of conjunction of union of the two religions in a way. And it turns out that a lot of people were against him, and they rejected him. They called him the Antichrist, the devil, the whatever the fuck we were saying to the Pope.
You talking about the Jesuit Pope?
Something like that. And at the end of the day, the old Pope, because remember there used to be an old Pope before this Pope that we have now, who gave his position. He was trying to gain back the position of a Pope, because a lot of the monks or whatever, the higher anarchy up there in the church were against this Pope. So being said, he tries already to build up some kind of like one single religion. And that means destroying a lot of the concepts of what the old traditional Catholic Church is all about. So he's trying to change things in the church. It's just that you have the traditional ones where like no, and then you have some of the new ones that they wanted to change things. But of course, if you try to change things on the church, it's like it's the end of the world. It's just like he's the devil, he's the Antichrist, he's everything. So yeah.
Whoa, what's going on there?
Oh, you had no idea in the Catholic Church up there. There's a lot of shit in the Catholic Church right now. Yeah.
Get the fuck out. Get out.
Pretty much that's what they're trying to do. And yeah.
For Rick.
You're not playing. She's about to slit a throat.
And it's sickening, too.
As you guys should see it, man. It's been up there. It's literally up there that he tries to change the church.
Da
He really
Vinci,
did.
Da Vinci had so much pecker swinging all over the place, man. What was up with that dude?
I wouldn't call them peckers. I might call them, you know, gumdrops.
What is up with this guy?
Let me stop.
So much.
They all look stressed the hell out.
About to say,
But that's
so
the condition
much,
of Europe at the
misery
time.
in this picture.
That's the
Stressed
condition.
Straight stress.
That's the condition of Europe at the time. This is art was reflecting what was going on.
What's reflecting what's happening in society in the old times, when you get to see like the nice, beautiful looking females up there with the dogs and the guys with the long hats, high society. You
I mean,
also
look,
get
if
to
you think that
see
we're freaking out and stressed out, imagine what these people had to go through back in these little dark ages. They were terrorized. They were terrorized for real, for real.
Look at the person behind him screaming.
Skating.
Ah!
All real monster scream.
It's like an anime face from Goku or something. You know what I mean?
You see me coming, you see me going.
This is hilarious, man. This is crazy. I've never looked at this picture like this.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm in tears.
But again, we got that tree of life reference. So we can certainly say that the artist here and the early church was definitely hip to the science.
Definitely studying the Kabbalah.
Right.
Oh my gosh, man.
well, there's been kind of like it's been like a skeptical people say that Michelangelo was one of those like, you know, occult type of society groups up there.
I gotta think they all were. Da Vinci, Michael. I think all artists at those times, I think all of them were a part of because they were a part of guilds. And a guild is nothing but a fraternal system. So they all were part of some sort of alchemist fraternal system.
Not only that, it wasn't always just one dude. One dude trained others to create just like him.
You're absolutely right.
So while one person might get the credit, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes it was a team. But we
So
won't
you
go
mean
much
right
into
now somebody is real mad at Michelangelo in the background, like, yo, he ain't even paint that by himself.
right. And it's
Yeah.
not so far-fetched because we see that same shit happen all the way up to today.
You're absolutely right.
Eli Whitney and his cotton gin.
Mm.
Yeah. See, this is the whole reason why this has come together. So we can all have a greater viewpoint of a lot of stuff. That was good. I'm so happy you showed that picture, man.
Yes.
Oh,
Everyone
man.
enjoyed their Laughing Buddha experience?
Oh,
No.
LBS.
That was hilarious. Got to have laughter. No one was smiling in any of those pictures.
No.
Not one of them.
Not even God.
A crack, nothing.
No one was smiling. Everything was dead serious.
God wasn't even happy about it.
God was not even happy, man. Wow. See what happens when you read Kabbalah and initiation Hermetic information? We turn to complete scientists of pictures and art.
See?
Wasn't this painted like right after the Black Death or during? I'm not fully sure.
We just cracked the whole code of the creation of Adam. He was an idiot.
Right.
Wow.
Felicia says, so that's what the Bible means by Adam and Eve ate from the tree of life and gained awareness. So honestly, I think that process has a lot to do with what's going on here in these top 3 spheres, right? Kether is the first possibly conceivable notion of the potential of creation. That's what's happening at the top. That's what we call God. That's the closest thing our tiny little human brains can conceive of as what God may be. Now, from this point, it splits into the masculine principle, which is Chakma. Now, from the rib, from this, we get the feminine principle, which would be classified as Eve, or Bina. So this right here, you got Genesis. Genesis is happening. God creating man, and from man creating woman. It's detailing the process of how the energy is splitting from potential to simple life forms, atoms, to complex life forms. Ooh, oh shit. To where we are today.
Hmm. I
Rounded.
have a sheet that has the spiritual meanings of the Hebrew alphabet letters. And we know that when you follow the path, Kether follows the first path, which is Aleph. And of course, Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet and signifies the number 1. Aleph indicates the oneness and unity of the Creator. It hints that beyond the illusion of separation and duality is underlying oneness, that nothing is separate and the Creator is the source of everything. And the shape of the Aleph is 2 yads, one above and one below, with a diagonal line, the Vav, between them, representing the higher world and the lower world, with the Vav separating and connecting the two. Aleph represents the creation of something from nothing, and it has much more, but I won't read all of that, but that kind of just makes sense what you just said.
Yes.
Aleph.
So look, everybody in the chat as well. I have notes that I've taken from Mystical Kabbalah. So I know at times some of her writing can be a bit thick, you know what I'm saying, a bit heavy to chew on. So please take a look at those notes. They're easy to find in the membership portion of the page and also in the little website. You can find those notes to help you clarify more of what's going on here so you don't feel lost, because it is about to turn up from this point. It's really about to turn up because she's about to get more and more in depth with these trees. What she's described so far are the different patterns and the different relations between the different Sephiroth. But she's about to start getting more specific. So it's crucial to understand the wide perspective before we dig into the specific perspective. All right. So if you're behind, that's okay. You know what I'm saying? You've got time. Just don't give up or feel like, oh, it's too late or whatever. And also don't feel like, oh, I don't have to read this, because it all builds upon itself. So yeah, please check those notes out. And also look, step 1 of initiation into Hermetics is the most important one. If you don't do none of these others, please go ahead and make that list of the black and white mirrors. I did an audiobook reading on it. If you didn't read it yet, you know, ask questions in the chat on the website, whatever you got to do. I highly advise and recommend that you make this list. Yeah. Django brought down a very great, easy method of getting that list done for yourself if you missed that part in the beginning of this video. But yeah, I'm just saying, it would behoove you to get this process done, because you'll begin to understand more and more in depth of what we're discussing here. Godflow says, how many hours a day do you read, Trav? Keep me some motivation, or give me some motivation. Aye. Well, this is now my full-time deal. So yeah, I read a lot. I honestly don't keep track of it. It's just what I have to do. I sleep pretty much while the sun's up. When I wake up, I come here to this table, sit my ass down, and I'm digging through these books, taking notes. I might play some Apex afterwards, get back to the books. And of course, I also recognize that this is not how it's going to be forever. This is for a specific purpose. I've got to finish these books. I've got to break these books down. This is a specific purpose. So also while you're doing this and you're disciplining yourself to sit down and read and study and meditate, keep in mind it's for a reason. You're not just doing it for nothing. If you can attach it to a reason that's important to you, that's going to give you more seriousness to finish it. Please do the work. Usually when we say do the work, I can understand if it sounds abstract and you don't know what the fuck the work is. But this time, you know exactly what the work is. The work is step 1 from initiation into hermetics and reading these chapters of mystical Kabbalah. There's literally no excuse at this point. If you're in this group, that you signed up for this because you wanted to take it seriously, you wanted to get deeper, do the work. The work is step 1. Now at this point, the work is step 2 as well. But come on, y'all. I know that a lot of y'all are doing it, but for those of you who are not, that's what this message is for. The real David Goodlow says, I want to see the black and white mirror video. Do you remember the title? It should be like 2 videos I did back. It's Initiation into Hermetics, step 1. But it's also in the book, The Initiation into Hermetics. And the PDF is also available on the website if you don't have it. But it's step 1, Initiation into Hermetics, step 1.
I'm such a filthy, disgusting pig after doing my Black Mirror.
Knowing is half the battle, right? It's interesting looking at these books and then going back to kind of some of the ones I started with, like Basic Magic, for example. The whole reason I found out about Initiation into Hermetics is because I looked in the bibliography of Basic Magic and pretty much bought all those books. That's where I heard about Ophiel from. That's where I heard about Franz Barton from. But he has a similar exercise in Basic Magic where he pretty much asks you to, if you had no one to judge you and all the money in the world, make a list of all the things that you would do. Right, with no limitations, no judgment, no time limit, nothing. And it's almost a similar thing because you start writing down a list of all the things that you would do with your life. And I remember doing that. And for me, it kind of just opened up doors. Like I realized how much I wasn't doing because I was afraid of people judging me. I realized how much of my own dreams I was stifling because I was afraid of judgment. I think that this list that Franz Barton is recommending has a similar effect. A lot of times we might know that we have some of these issues, but we don't really take them into consideration because it's not out in the light. It's still in the shadow. So we're literally doing shadow work by bringing these qualities out to the light, and we're dealing with them consciously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Trav, have you read
Black and
The
white.
Occult Anatomy of Man by Manly P. Hall?
I have it. I've read pieces of it. I haven't read from cover to cover, no.
Okay. I just wanted to ask you that. That's a pretty interesting piece.
Yeah. Manly P. Hall is a great teacher. He's one of those that kind of just break it down plain and simple for you in a smooth way.
Yeah.
But God,
May the church say amen. Or
friend of the world is an enemy of God.
Ashe.
Ashe. Y'all all right?
Of God.
Good God.
You're ridiculous. Yep. Yep.
China. Won't he do it?
Won't he do it?
Yes, she will.
Yes, she will.
She really
Peace,
will.
y'all. I need to go meditate.
Yes. Hi. This is TK Trav.
AKA,
777.
AKA, AKA
My sorority, right? Or fraternity, whatever.
fraternity.
All right, everyone. Trav, man, you're an awesome dude, man. You're an awesome guy.
Yeah, I could say the same about you.
I appreciate it. You know, according to that black mirror that I've wrote, I'm not so awesome at the moment, but we're working on it. As they say in church, you know, God's still working on the building.
See? I think it's powerful that we actually now have the ability to reincorporate this Christian stuff.
Our churchiness.
Yeah. Instead of antagonizing it and have it, you know what I'm saying, this thing that we're fighting against, like we can literally, okay. I think one of the greatest powers that I've seen in the comic books are the entities that just absorb everything and repurpose it.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? How can you fight something like that? How can you fight Venom?
Yeah.
How can you fight Mega Man after he's going to beat you with your power?
Exactly.
But yeah, I'm great that we can take this Christianity stuff, and it's a relief because I think that Cassandra said this. All the time you spent invested in it is not wasted now, right? Whereas before you felt robbed, you felt cheated.
I think that's what it is. I don't think we were really mad at Christianity. I think that we were mad at the way it was presented to us, or the way it was like forcefully given to us, and we were left with too many questions unanswered, and then that's when you begin to develop this bad taste in your mouth. You know what I mean? It's not that you were angry; it was just like you were disappointed.
Right.
Like you present all this great stuff and all this great power. You know, you can do greater things than, you know, by all of this. But then you're like left with you ask a simple question and you given no answer. You know, that's just disappointing.
Right.
So churches have to be careful about disappointing people. We're not angry. We were disappointed.
Yeah, that was my gripe as a preacher, man. Listening to all these sermons, they would never really give any practicality. It was all airy fairy. All airy fairy.
You keep giving me all this snacks and salad. I'm ready to eat some steak and potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want any more cheddar biscuits. Bring me out the lobster and the meat now.
Hey, them cheddar biscuits is good now.
I'm not mad at the cheddar biscuits. I'm just saying.
Put some protein powder in there. It might be a meal.
but like I said, there's a place for that. There are more people who want the salad and the cheddar biscuits, but for the few of us who want something more, now we have something to go to, and we can go back and get that salad on the side.
We can go to the Golden Corral.
And guess what? We can slip some of that steak in between some of that lettuce. You know what I'm saying? So when they eating it, they get a taste of something a little different.
Yeah. But man, good stuff, man. Good stuff. It's a good way to spend a Sunday, stimulating the mind with like-minded people.
Yes.
And I think, you know, I said it before, we should all see ourselves as a part of the tree. And this group that we're a part of is a tree of life. And if you look at your screen right now, you'll see how the little boxes are all figured. It's all a glyph. We're all in these boxes, or we're all in our own little circle. So we are all a glyph on a tree of life.
Yes.
I'm glad to be a part. And let me go work on my Black Mirror sludge and fudge, which I love so much. I still, we can, and I think that's a good thing to say. Even though you discover all of this bad stuff about yourself, you still got to love yourself because it's all a part of you.
Right.
And none of us would have made it this far if we didn't learn anything from that, you know. So it's a part of our journey, and I'm appreciative of both good and both bad. So everyone, to all who are fathers, you know, we're fathers every day. So enjoy whatever's planned out for you, or if there's nothing planned out for you, as Trav says, do the work and to pay off. That's where you're going, you know, just like you know, in masonry, you have to work to earn your wages. You know, so if you don't work, you don't eat. So with that, I say peace to everyone, and I appreciate you, Trav.
Very
Thank you,
well.
sir. Peace, Mike. Peace, everyone.
Peace, bro.
All right. For those of y'all keeping up, we got step number 2 to work on. If you're still on step 1 with your black mirror and whatnot, that's okay. Don't rush. You're still here. The video is going to be here on replay. You know what I'm saying? If you finish step 1 next week and you want to join the call and talk about it, that's perfectly fine. In 3 weeks from now, if you just now getting to step 2 and you want to get on the call and talk about it, that's perfectly fine. My goal is to get to the end of this so that you can feel like, you know what I'm saying, you actually got through these 2 very difficult books. You made it to the end and you have a full understanding that you can look back on. So go at your own pace, but, you know, keep up the pace. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't not do it. Do it to your best ability. I think I've stressed that enough. I appreciate all you guys because this is amazing. This is amazing. I'm very grateful and thankful that this is what I get to spend my time doing. So yeah, I appreciate you guys. Does anybody have any last words or whatever before we meet again? This
China.
may be the last time. This may be the last time, children.
I'm out of here. I gotta get some sleep, y'all. I
Yeah,
will
me too.
chit chat with you all later. Ooh, I'm on slow-mo mode right now.
I get goofy
Peace.
in that too.
Yeah. All right, y'all. We'll see y'all. See you guys Thursday, and we'll see everybody else on Sunday.
Yes.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
Good night. Or, you know, good morning or whatever. Thank you. You're welcome. Peace in the Middle East. All right, just checking the chat. Looks like nobody really has any questions. But again, thank you guys. Thank you guys for taking this seriously. If you're Marie, I see you. Uncle Me Gold, I see you. Purple Star Goddess, I see you. No blah. All right, y'all. Have a wonderful day, wonderful week. Be easy. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Mages, here with LVX777. I love you guys. Peace.